I'm Mariana Cordier. Welcome to Montgomery Weekend Review. The League of Women Voters of Maryland has filed an amicus brief in favor of changing the redistricting rules in the country. Elaine Apter, the co-president of the League in Maryland, will comment. Montgomery College is funded by the state of Maryland as well as the county and has a great interest in what is happening during the 2019 session in Annapolis. Brad Stewart, a provost at the college, will give us the latest news. County Executive Mark Elrich and County Council President Nancy Navarro have announced a new early care and education initiative for the county. Shirley Brandman, who comments for this program, will explain. A frequent question about nutrition is, what should you eat when you're 70? Henry Hailstock has also been thinking about this question, and he's here to tell us what he has learned. So Elaine, thank you for coming on the show.
It's my pleasure again.
It is so exciting to hear that the League of Women Voters have filed this amicus brief about the gerrymandering issue. Is that correct?
Yes. And what's really interesting is the League of Women Voters of Maryland is on amicus brief for a state that was gerrymandered on the Democratic side. At the same time, the Supreme Court is going to hear the League of Women, the case for gerrymandering for North Carolina. So the League of Women Voters of North Carolina is on that case, and that's a Republican gerrymander. So the hope is that because there are both political parties involved, that it won't be just one side or the other.
Right,
they
because
can really look at
gerrymandering is really redesigning those lines to favor one party or the other, and they're both guilty of doing that.
And they are, and the one that's going before the Supreme Court for Maryland is the one with the 6th district gerrymandered, where Governor O'Malley actually bragged that he was going to get another district for the Democrats, and he did. It was 6 Democratic districts and 2 Republican, and now it's, it's 5 and 2, yeah.
Was it a hard decision for you guys to sign on to the amicus brief?
Oh no, we really worked on it, and our amicus brief really deals with the right of the voters choosing their elected officials. That's basically what we're saying is the Constitution says every 2 years the people are supposed to choose their representative to the House of Representatives.
So how do you articulate the harm to the voter from this gerrymandering?
The harm to the voter basically was 2 things. One, they took the right away of the voter choosing their elected official. Now with gerrymandering, the elected official chooses who their voters are going to be. But the other side of it in our amicus brief is accountability. The idea that if you don't like what's going on, you can oust who is ever in office. But if you've got these safe districts that are gerrymandered, you can scream all you want, and that elected official just sits there and says, I'm going to be reelected.
Our Constitution guarantees that your voice should be heard by your ability to vote, and to take that away from voters seems unfair.
And the other thing we say that I think was interesting is how we differ from England is the idea that it was the aristocrat and you got it through hierarchy, and it's almost dealing with the same thing, but not through the aristocratic, but either through money or gerrymandering.
Within the League, what would you propose as the alternative?
The alternative that we're looking at is independent redistricting, like Governor Hogan has now, and they've actually put out a plan for the new 6th district.
So wait, can you tell us, what does independent districting mean? Like, who makes the decision?
It means that the governor or somebody chooses a group of people who are basically not nonpartisan. Usually it's split. We're looking at maybe a third Democrat, a third Republican, and a third unaffiliated or a third
And they
party.
can't be elected officials.
And they can't be elected officials. And that's one of the things we're hoping that the Supreme Court maybe does, is actually looks at what the criteria would be for a gerrymandering problem. What would be the judicial thing? So maybe, if nothing else, the Supreme Court would set guidelines that says, you know, well, if this happens, then it is political gerrymandering.
See, that's my problem. I'm glad you brought up that, because I've been biting my tongue, is the guidelines. Because year after year, you know, or term after term, you know, it seems like it's going to be changed. And I hear about this section is going to be redistricted, this section is going to be. You have to have the guidelines.
Confusing because
Yes.
people never know where
For a
they
lot
are.
of the voters, yes. And, you know, we come up with the groups that are saying this is unfair for us. I'm glad the Supreme Court is looking at the guidelines, because that's
what
important.
We're hoping. That's what we're
Yeah,
hoping.
well,
If nothing
yeah.
else, they come out with
Yeah.
the guidelines.
Yes.
And it will be interesting too with the redistricting committee, because the Constitution says that the state legislature should choose, the redistricting.
So that just
So,
guarantees gridlock.
Yeah. So that's
How many
gonna
other
be,
leagues have signed on to the amicus brief? Do you know?
basically, because it's a Maryland case and a North Carolina case, those are the only leagues that have signed up for this one. And there is going to be a rally, the date that they hear it, March 26th, at 9:30 in front of the Supreme Court. So we invite you all to come to the Supreme Court, and hopefully we can get something on redistricting that works for the voter and not for the politician.
If the weather's nice, we'll be there.
Oh, okay,
Well,
good.
that's awesome, and you've got Montgomery College sitting right
I
next to you,
know.
so maybe some
and
of their
he's doing
students will
such
rally.
wonderful things with his students. So,
Well, and that is a great segue into our next story of
Yep.
Montgomery College and their funding. Thank you so much for coming on the show and
You're
telling
welcome.
us what is going on in Annapolis.
Well, this is budget season for the college, both at the state and county level. Last week I was in Annapolis twice, and I'm happy to report that our capital budget request, which includes the new Catherine and Isaiah Leggett Math and Science Building at the Tacoma Park Silver Spring campus, is well on track. We got through
Awesome.
appropriations last week. We had students there earlier in the week to lobby our elected officials. They're wonderful advocates for the college. I really think that the legislators and their staffs would rather see our students than they would see me.
And it was an impressive outcome. I mean, how many students showed up?
Oh, there were several hundred across
Right.
the state of Maryland from the 16 community colleges. There were about 15 kids from Montgomery College there.
That's great.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Seeing young people engaged in our political
yeah.
system is so, I think, great, because it shows their interest, and hopefully they will continue to show that.
Yeah.
yeah, and it starts them out on the right track as
Yeah.
educated voters. And
Yeah, and we'll bring them back a couple of times before Sign and Die on April 9th to talk about our operating budget. That's not quite as optimistic a picture at the state
tell us
level.
why.
Well, the community colleges in Maryland are funded by something called the CADE formula, named after Senator Cade, that gives community colleges just a percentage of the full-time equivalent students at the University of Maryland system. And so we have been talking about that inequity for at least the 15 years I've been at Montgomery College, and we'll continue to talk about it as well. So the formula.
So overall, though, how much money do you get from the state towards the college budget?
Yeah, that's the real rub. Theoretically, community colleges are supposed to be across the country funded by about a third by their local government, about a third by their state government, and students make up the other third with their tuition. So that's never been the case in Maryland. The state of Maryland only funds about 15% of Montgomery College's budget. The county, fortunately, has been willing to step up and funds over 50% of our budget, and our students pay 32, 33%. And it's very important to keep that number as low as you can
Right.
for
has
access
there been
purposes.
a change in the state? Has it declined or kept steady?
It goes up and down around the 20% figure. And frankly, the quality of education at Montgomery College is equal to any of the Maryland system institutions, and so we ought to get our fair share.
Well, what I like about Montgomery College is the fact that they bring in the students that need a little more help, as well as those that are just can't afford, but want to start out in college for higher education to move on. That's one thing I care about. The other thing I don't understand, I'm glad you said that the county is stepping up more so than the state. But I just don't understand why they don't look at what the college is doing for the student to move up and on, because it's benefiting the county and the state, because the higher education that we have for those students and moving on and up, they'll be higher paid taxpayers.
So part of what's going on is there are 16 community colleges in Maryland, and the representatives that we elect to Annapolis all love their own community college, and then they all love the University System of Maryland. But they're not as concerned in Garrett County about Montgomery College's funding as their officials are not that concerned.
It's still the feeling we are the rich county and we don't need the money?
Yeah, and even though the Maryland Association of Community Colleges puts our request together, and we go united to make that request, some people still suffer from stereotypes about community colleges
So
as
how
well.
does it work, though? Once the state allocates money for community colleges, is it just evenly divided between the 16, or is there a different
there's a formula based on enrollment and the cost of living, et cetera. And so in that formula, Montgomery College comes out pretty well. It's just that the pie is way too small to start with.
Right. And I'm guessing we all say all the time that we have a very large and powerful delegation in Annapolis. And obviously, as you say, they I'm sure are aware of many of the benefits of Montgomery College. But so why do you think we haven't seen more of a breakthrough on this issue?
So our delegation is extremely effective in capital projects, where they can sort of throw their weight around, so to speak, very effectively. The operating budget, like I said, is tied closely to this formula, and it makes it more difficult. So legislators think, oh wow, the formula went up 2% this year.
But it's
we
interesting
did great.
because
Okay, we
the
got
point-
30 seconds left. I know this is a hot topic, but
Yeah.
in the last 30 seconds, what is the main point you'd like the audience to take away from this?
So we need money to make sure Montgomery College stays accessible, and we need money to make sure that Montgomery College stays affordable.
Okay, awesome. And with that, we will keep in mind that people can call their legislators and they can, put the bug in their ear to support those community colleges.
Yeah, email, phone calls, letters. Legislators love letters.
All right, well, we have to take a break and we'll be right back. Back. Shirley, thank you for coming back on the show.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So today we're talking about the county executive and the county council and their new early
care and education initiative. Yeah. Well, we live in a county where we're fortunate. We've had many champions for this effort for a long time. But I think it was really remarkable when they announced this new initiative that you had the county executive and every member of the county council standing up and saying, we are now really ready to make this a priority, including putting money into it even when we know this is a difficult budget season. So I know, for example, Council President Nancy Navarro has had a lifetime committed to this, both as a parent, as a provider, on the Board of Education, on the council. But I think now the effort is to really be smart and align. The county previously had a strategic plan, and now I think the idea is to really put the dollars and the effort and the resources and the support into smart strategic steps that are going to get us there. So the first
last week
year
you went to the
they had a
press
conference. Yes.
And what were the highlights of what they were announcing?
So they're announcing a total $7 million initiative. One of the key first efforts in the first year is to increase by 600 seats, spots available for young people. So the actual having availability to meet the need is critical. You only get there by thinking about all the other things like training providers, because you can't just simply open new centers. You need people who are trained to serve young people.
And the college has been gearing up in that effort for several years now.
Exactly, and part of the college was well represented by
Yep,
Dr. Pollard, talking about increasing and thinking differently about how we support the training, opening up some online opportunities, thinking about some on-site developmental educational opportunities
Yeah,
at the
because the
college.
workers are busy being childcare workers, and so they can't come to our campuses to go to class. So online classes work very well for them, and then we need to go to them. We need to send our faculty and staff to the childcare centers to help with the training.
It's amazing how technology has changed the way you can deliver education.
Absolutely right. And also thinking about how we can use technology and other resources to support providers who are very family-based, right? We have a large part of our community in Montgomery County where parents are choosing someone they trust who may or may not have the training, who may or may not have a license, who may or may not have gone through a formal process, but they're a loving individual who's trusted by the family. So part of the effort here is to think about how do we provide easy access to meaningful support so that every single provider who's touching any child in Montgomery County has the skills to really make that child ready for kindergarten. when
And
he or she
college is a
goes.
real stretch for some of these folks. They never thought they'd be college students.
You know,
Right.
and,
Right.
you know, I have a real problem with people not really doubling down to the younger people. Okay, technology has advanced tenfold. So why can't you have those students work with technology before they get to the kindergarten, even if they cannot go to child care?
Sure.
Well, but to your point,
Well,
Henry, I think you're right, but what we don't want are people just putting kids in front of devices,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So the
No.
idea
And-
is you want a provider who is maybe incorporating technology to
Yes.
engage young people,
Yes.
but to have some sense of what is it I'm doing? How am I helping this child develop his or her language?
Yes.
How am I helping this child be able to socialize with other
Socialize, yeah.
kids? And so I think it's filling in some of those, including some of what's in this initiative is recognizing some of these small businesses, they need help in terms of their financing to stay viable as small businesses, because we lose providers under the regulatory burdens, under some financial burdens. So some of the initiative thinks about how do we create that infrastructure to support the business aspect of some of these providers in
Teach them
addition to their
accounting
training.
skills.
Teach them accounting
Budgeting skills.
Exactly, providing them sort of as needed support directly. And then also I think one of the key things that was called out in this initiative is thinking about the spaces we have to be able to meet
Sure.
growing need. So, the old image of, you're going to have a lovely facility on a very large acreage with a park all around. We don't have that. But we do have commercial space available and we can co-locate. And what are the regulatory obstacles? How do they need to be changed? So the initiative looks to bring in providers, businesses, county voices to help really tackle what are some of these remaining barriers and how do we advocate, how do we look to get them lifted so that we can take advantage and have more opportunities.
Well, I hope you're thinking, because I don't know the full language of the program. Or
It's still evolving too.
Yeah, well, good, because we're still not using the schools after school projects. We're still not using the recreational centers. And to your point, as far as having people, the younger students, I would say, before they get to kindergarten, using the IT is it's based on how a parent works with their child. Right now, let's face it, in Montgomery County, you have parents that are really working hard to maintain a living in the county.
And that's
Okay.
the last word. Oh, sorry, we ran out of time. But it's a great issue, a great topic to
Well, let me
have
just say it's
us
really smart
revisit.
because it's focused 0 to 5. So it's recognizing we can't just wait for
Yes.
preschool, for
Thank you.
pre-K. We're looking 0 to 5.
So we'll be looking for you to come back and update us.
Absolutely.
Thank you. So Henry, here I am
Yeah.
thinking, what can I eat at 70? Actually, I'm thinking, what can I eat at 50? What are you finding out?
Well, if you look at what the government has put forth, I think it was in the year 2015, the RDA, the Recommended Dietary Allowance, they're going from 19 to 99 and beyond. Okay, they're not taking it in account for those that are maybe 40, 50, 100 and beyond. the dietary needs,
And
because
the
it
needs
changes.
with our change as we get older, the needs change. You know?
Yeah, and that's because our body changes.
Our metabolism is slowing
Yes,
down.
yes, it slows down tremendously. But our need, a nutritional need, is more so important than, say, the younger kids.
So what are some of the big changes?
Does that mean we get more cheesecake as we get older?
I wish. I wish. See, that was my problem, because I was eating for a long time, just like I was still at the training table and everything. And you got to be careful of that, because you have to be active and you have to understand what's going into your body.
Yep.
All right, throw away the bagels and the cake and everything else, and look at the nutritional needs. Let's take basically the RDA that they're talking about now. It's strictly for universal. It's not taking in consideration the different stages of life. Because as you said, our digestive system changes. It slows down, and that's the main thing that we need to understand.
Well, one of
It
the
slows
things that
down.
surprised me is that it was saying, for instance, as you're getting older, to eat more protein. And at first I thought, well, that can't be right, because usually I'm equating steak with high blood pressure, cholesterol, that kind of stuff. But
Well, if you eat steak, say at dinner time, you got to understand you're doing more of the protein basically than what you need in the full day. Let me just say this: 40 years on, you're losing 1% of your muscle each year. Okay. Now, take in consideration what helps build that muscle is protein.
Yep.
So let's just talk about protein, because you have the other nutritional factors. But let's just take protein itself. They're telling us that you should have 100 grams of protein a day.
Wow.
Okay. Now, it seems like a lot, but if you break it down, it's not, because your body can only metabolize 30 grams at a time.
Okay.
So if you eat a steak, which is roughly somewhere around 50, T-bone porterhouse is roughly around 50
So
grams
what are your
of protein.
I can only
to
eat half
steak?
one of those.
You need the protein,
Yes.
and you can't always have the
Break it
steak
down.
with
Break
it.
it down.
So
Break
my
it down.
vegan spouse will tell you lentils, beans.
Beans.
Yes,
Right.
beans,
Right.
nuts,
Avocados.
fruits,
Right.
all that.
The
okay?
other thing I've heard too is with the digestive changes, the milk products sometimes you have
So
older
less
people
dairy.
have trouble with.
Well, humans have problems with milk, period.
Yeah.
Okay, because it's not necessarily, and if you talk to a trainer that knows about nutrition, like my son, he says milk is not really a liquid that you really,
Yeah.
take,
But Henry,
because it's difficult to digest. However, go ahead.
Well, I'm curious though, because just making sure that you're eating enough protein is probably not enough without being physically active to maintain your
Well,
healthy bones,
well,
right?
as-
You can't
as-
just eat your way to it.
Right, as they've heard me say on many occasions on this show alone, that you have to exercise, you have to work out, and that's what I wanted to say. If you eat more than 30 grams of protein, at one setting, it's going to turn the fat and the acidity that you hope will maintain in your body. You're going to pee. You're going to pee it out. So it doesn't do any good. So try to, be active and try to maintain that level. If you eat, let's say, 30 here at breakfast, 30 at lunch, 30 or so at dinner, you're within the realm. Studies have shown that people, let's say in their 70s, that only ate the RDA requirement, lost muscle. Okay, for those that doubled that, they maintain 6 years longevity and they maintain their muscle.
So does it speak to whether you should have more smaller meals along the way as opposed to trying to do it?
I
even
personally, that's what I use, because I'm in training. I'm in training now because I'm supposed to be going to the nationals for field events. But yes, that's, to me, to be honest with you, it's better, because if you're eating small portions throughout the day, you're maintaining it, because your body is handling all that. Your body's saying, okay, good, I can handle this, I can handle that, and you move along, and it's less fat that's retained.
Who
So
knew
in the
snacks
last
were good
15
for you?
seconds, we have 15 seconds left. What's the last point that you want to leave with the audience?
Be active. I'll have a 2-page book that I can publish. Eat less and move more.
All right, and that's the last word. So thank you, all of you, for joining me this week, and thank you for joining all of us for this week's edition of Montgomery Weekend Review. I'm Mariana Cordier. Please join us next week at the same time.